So we review a ton of lasers here on this channel, but with all of those lasers, I'll always get questions about one, and that is the Glowforge. So in this video, we are going to check it out. Hey, welcome back to the shop. My name is Brandon, where we make things and break things because we know the mistakes are part of the process. And sometimes those mistakes aren't something that you build, but a purchase that you make and then you regret. And we also do a lot of product reviews here as well. And over the last year, there have been a lot of lasers that I've had a chance to check out. There's actually a playlist right up there of my other laser reviews. And if you've seen any of my reviews, more than likely you've seen the Glowforge, and that's not because that I've done a review of it, but because you've probably seen an ad for it. But I finally got the chance to check one of these out myself. And full disclosure, Glowforge was nice enough to send this over for my review, but they're not seeing this video beforehand, and all of these opinions are my own. Now, we're gonna get into all the tech specs, all of the details, and do some test cuts here in a minute, and we'll even compare it to other lasers that I've had a chance to check out in the past, like the Full Spectrum Muse especially, as well as some of the cheaper units from Tech. But as I've thought more about Glowforge and used it more, it's a little bit hard to compare it to those other machines in a straight, like pound for pound, stat for stat, which one's gonna win, Foxy-Metaphor. So Glowforge, I wanna talk about this a little bit differently, and that is through the lens of a bigger ecosystem, where the laser is just one element of it. In fact, there's 5 different elements that we're gonna talk about when we talk about Glowforge. So first up is going to be the laser. Second is going to be the software that you use to run it. Third is going to be the materials that you can put inside to actually make stuff with it. And then fourth will be the actual designs. And then fifth will be the community that surrounds the whole thing. So first off, let's talk about the laser, and let's be honest, that's the most fun, right? Yay! This is the Glowforge Pro, which is at the top end of the 3 machines that they provide. You can see a quick chart right here on the differences between the machines, and you can see really what you're getting when you spend more money is a faster machine, and in this case, a more powerful machine, so you jump up from a 40-watt unit to a 45-watt unit. And one big feature that the Pro has is actually a pass-through slot. There's actually a hole right here that you can pass materials both through the front and the back that you don't get with the other machines. Now, at the time of this recording, the basic unit is $2,995. The Plus is $3,995. And then the Pro does a big step up to $5,995. Now, in terms of size, the machine itself is 38 by 20 3/4 by 8 1/4 inches. But then the actual work area is 20 inches in the X and then 18 inches in the Y. Again, if you have the Pro, that pass-through actually gives you kind of unlimited in the Y direction, but for the other 2 units, it's gonna be 18. And then the max material height is going to be 2 inches. And then the laser itself is a CO2 laser, and it is 45 watts on the Pro or 40 on the basic or the Plus. And the design of it is actually pretty cool because you can actually see the laser right here in the back. You can see the coils right over there. So when this is actually firing, it's pretty fun because you actually watch the laser do its work. Now, one cool thing about the Glowforge is the entire laser path is actually sealed. And if you aren't super familiar with CO2 lasers, basically this big tube makes a laser, and then they use a series of mirrors to bounce it around, and then it comes down this guy right here and it gets focused to a lens, and that actually makes your laser beam. Usually that path of the laser is bouncing around is actually out in the open for most lasers that I've seen, which works fine, but over time you get dust and debris, especially on those mirrors that you're gonna have to clean or replace. Having that entire path sealed is actually really, really nice. And because of that, you don't have to do any type of aligning to the optics or anything crazy like that you would, especially with the import style units like from Tech or some of the cheaper ones. A lot of times you kind of have to tinker with the mirrors a little bit so you can actually get it optimized, but all of that is done for you. And that really brings me to one thing we're gonna keep coming back to, is just how easy the Glowforge is to use. You don't have to tinker with it, you don't have to fiddle with it. I mean, you really just open up the box, put it wherever you want it, turn it on, and you're pretty much good to go. Now, Glowforge first started as a Kickstarter, which was super popular, and at the time, that was actually the first time I ever saw a camera that was on a laser. There probably were cameras on other machines, I just hadn't seen it, especially in a unit that is designed for a desktop. And there's actually 2 different cameras on this machine. One is actually right here in the lid. This is a wide angle, and so when you shut this lid, it takes a picture of the entire workbed, which then gets pulled into the software, and we'll talk all about how that works here in a second. But then there's actually a second camera, and that's actually inside of the laser module, head, whatever you want to call it, and that is used for focusing. So this actually auto focuses is to your material. And again, if you're looking at lasers for the first time, you don't have a lot of experience with them, focus is a really big deal. In my bigger 50-watt unit, it's actually something that I have to do manually, either on the actual laser or the bed is adjustable. Just like if we were outside with the sun and a magnifying glass, there's gonna be a certain point where that little dot on the ground gets the tiniest, which also means it's the most intense. And that's the exact same thing that that lens is doing inside of that laser head. But then you want to get it focused at the exact right spot. And that's going to change depending on the thickness of the material, as well as the depth of cut. So there's a camera inside of right here that is going to auto sense how far it is above the material. And then it's going to make whatever adjustments it needs to the lens. Now, one thing the Full Spectrum Muse does on the top end is it actually focuses while it's running. So especially if you're doing like an engrave on a piece of material that isn't the same thickness, it's actually going to adjust the laser head as it goes. But one thing I do know it does is between cuts, it will actually readjust, because if you're taking multiple passes to cut through a piece of material, you're actually cutting a little bit deeper each time you go. So the lens is going to get a little bit further down, so it's still cutting at the right spot. So there's actually a lot of magic that's happening right inside of there. Now you still can do manual focus, and that is just right inside of the software. There's a little setting that you can adjust it. Now, one feature that you don't get, especially with the really cheap CO2 lasers like the 40-watt from OhmTech, is air assist. There's basically a stream of air that is constantly going to wherever the laser is cutting, because you're gonna get flare-ups, you're gonna get flames, and it's always putting those out. Now, other desktop units will actually house this in a separate compressor, so you'll have something that's kind of next to the machine that's constantly putting that out. But Glowforge not only has air assist, but it's actually all internal. And again, that's another feature you probably wouldn't even realize is happening because you can't really see what's going on right here. But at the end of the day, nothing is catching on fire. Then another safety feature that you're gonna have with any CO2 laser is a way to actually cool the laser tube. So as this thing is firing, it's gonna get hot. It's a glass tube, so eventually it would crack. So this actual coil right here is water. And so there's water that's going around the actual laser tube, and that's what keeps it cool. Now for cheaper machines, just like with the compressor, you're gonna have some type of separate water reservoir that you're gonna have to keep filled up with distilled water, and then you're gonna have to pump it through the machine. And my actually very first one, it was literally an aquarium pump that was inside of just like a plastic box that you just run hoses out the back. So you'd have this like super loud, annoying air compressor, as well as the water reservoir that will be in addition to the actual machine itself. But with the Glowforge, that is all internal as well. And because that is closed loop, you really don't have to worry about the water getting contaminated. Now, they actually do a really good job with internal lighting. Actually, in fact, you've got these two LED strips, which do a really good job of lighting up the machine, especially once you have this lid closed, because those are going directly down into the workbench. Now on the mechanical side of things, this laser head is gonna have to move in the X direction as well as the Y. And they're using a combination of linear rails, V-wheels, and belt, which is pretty standard for pretty much any CO2 machine. What's a little bit unique is their linear rails are custom, at least I'm pretty sure they're custom. I've never seen anything quite like what they've got. You can actually see this is the one on the front that's just part of this entire housing that then runs along the side rails. Now it also comes with a honeycomb bed, which is great, especially if you're making a lot of debris, and that's going to drop down and not clutter up what you're working on or get clogged up, and then you're able to get that out the bottom. It's not like super removable, which other machines have, so that would be nice if you could kind of take it out a little bit easier, but you definitely can if you need to. Now, one other thing you have to think about, especially when the laser is running, is what is gonna happen with the exhaust. A lot of times that is just a simple hose that is vented out a window. I have that with several machines right now, which you totally can do with the Glowforge. It's got a port right in the back, but they also sell the Glowforge air filter, which I do have with this unit. That is nice because you can pump it directly into it, and it uses a combination of activated carbon as well as a HEPA filter to pretty much get rid of all the fumes. And what that really means is you can run the Glowforge inside without ventilation, which is pretty wild. A lot of times you'll see Glowforges in like craft rooms where it's not going out a window and it's going directly into that HEPA filter, and you're good to go. Now that does have consumables and you'll eventually have to replace that, but that is actually really, really nice. Now that is separate in addition to the Pro, and it's like nearly $1,000. So it may not be worth it for you, but it was something I got to check out with this unit. And last on the laser side of things is the warranty. So you're gonna get 6 months on the basic and the plus, and then you're gonna get 12 months on the Pro. Just overall on the construction, it definitely feels like a high-end machine. You got glass on the top, you've got powder-coated, I think, metal for the actual body construction, and all the wires and electronics are tucked away. Everything is really, really clean. Again, coming back to this is really easy and really approachable for someone to use. Now, you might be looking at it and wondering, like, where are the controls for the unit? Because there's actually only one, and that is this button right here, which brings us to part 2 of the ecosystem, the software. And the software brings us to probably the biggest con that you hear a lot of people talk about, and that's just the fact this is all web-based. So you control the complete machine from a web browser, which means the machine is actually connected to Wi-Fi, and then you're just talking to it through the router. Now, that is actually one advantage that the Full Spectrum Muse has over the Glowforge, because it's also web-based, but you can also run it offline and just connect the computer directly to the machine. There's literally not an Ethernet port, USB port, any of those to connect this thing up. You're gonna connect it straight to the internet. But since the software is all web-based, it actually gives you a lot of benefits. First is just from how accessible this is from pretty much any computer that you have, whether it's Mac or PC or whatever other ones are out there. You pretty much just open up a web browser, type in app.glowforge.com, log in, set up your machine, and you're good to go. Pretty much anytime you close this door, it's gonna take a picture of whatever is in your workbed. So it's actually going to pull up, not a live feed, but a most recent picture that then you can do your design and move it around for the materials that you're gonna be cutting. Then you'll create or import your design, position it on the material however you want, and then you actually send it to the machine. And then once everything is processed in terms of feeds and speeds and it figuring out what it needs to do, this button changes colors, you press it, and it starts working. Now, it might be a safety thing, but you can't start the laser remotely. You actually can with the Full Spectrum Muse, but this one, you actually have to physically press a button for it to start. Now, we won't get super deep into the software, but you pretty much have all your standard stuff. You can import JPEGs or PNGs to do rasterized stuff if you want to do a picture, or you can bring in vector artwork if you actually want to cut stuff out. There's a couple cool features that are built in, like a puzzle maker, so you can bring in an image, you want to make it a puzzle, and it'll auto-generate that for you, so you don't have to do that in some other piece of software. But one really cool piece about this is when it comes to doing something that is really big, is as you push this through and you position it for the next time it's going to carve, it's gonna take that picture, figure out whatever the design needs to do, and then auto-adjust it. So it's doing machine learning, crazy algorithm science stuff. And that's the stuff you just can't do in other software. And then the software gets updated on a pretty constant clip. They actually just did some things to make the designs easier to see. And they actually added in some settings recently for doing cardboard. Now, because the software is getting updated constantly, that means there's people that are also working on it, and they're also getting paid for it. And they're getting that through an actual paid version of the Glowforge software. So there's a free version, and then there's also a paid. And I know that can be pretty controversial for a lot of folks, but what I found, especially if you're able to do a lot of your artwork outside of their software, so whether you're really good with Adobe Illustrator or even some of the free vector editing stuff, you can still import it in directly, use it, and you're just fine. Now, in the premium version of the software, they will do some things kind of with the machine. They'll actually speed up the processing time. So basically how long it takes to generate all the toolpaths and then send it to the machine. So that is one advantage you get, as well as access to some pretty cool designs of different projects that you can carve out. And then you can also bring in some custom fonts, as well as some custom designs that are directly inside of the app. So next up on the ecosystem, you have the laser, you have a way to control the laser, but then you actually need to create something that is real. So you've got materials, and Glowforge provides their own materials. And they actually have a pretty good selection of acrylics to hardwoods and a bunch of different things. But what's nice about it is how this actually interacts with the software. So you can see there's definitely a QR code that is chilling right here. So when you put it inside of the machine, once it scans the workbed, it's gonna recognize the material that's in the machine, and it's going to auto adjust the cut settings. So with lasers, there's usually 2 different settings you're gonna adjust depending on the material that you're using, and that's gonna be the speed that laser head is moving, and then the actual power of the laser. And a different combination of those are gonna give you different results. But what's nice is they pretty much do all of that for you, and it all happens automatically. Again, coming back to they wanna keep it really, really easy. So if you use materials that come from them, you can just bring it in, it automatically detects it, and then you're good to go. Now, you still can do this all custom. You can do materials they don't provide. You can put in your own speed and power settings, but if you're going through them, you're kind of inside of their ecosystem, and it all just works together really, really well. So the fourth part of the ecosystem are the actual design. So these are like the digital files you're going to use to actually make your stuff in real life. And somewhat recently, Glowforge actually released their design catalog, which is a combination of their own projects as well as projects from the community that they've kind of vetted that you can actually purchase, or if you're on premium, a lot of those are going to be free for you. So then you can create some stuff yourself. And some of these projects are actually pretty cool. You can see this is a lamp and it's going to bring in a bunch of different versions of it because you have to cut a bunch of different pieces out. And then it gives you also some tips on actual assembly. Now, what's also pretty cool about the catalog is anyone can create designs, and if they accept it, you actually make money from those designs. So that's a potential revenue source for you guys. In addition to selling things that you make with the Glowforge, you can just sell your designs and then folks can use them and pay you for them. And then if you're using the material that they used for those designs, all the work is pretty much done for you. You're just gonna open it up, put the material in, and hit go, which is just easy. Also want to let you guys know that this video is brought to you by Skillshare. If you guys didn't know, Skillshare provides tons of classes online that you can learn a lot of new skills. One thing with this is you're going to be creating designs if you're not using the ones that Glowforge provide for you. And so whether you're going to have to use vector editing software like Adobe Illustrator, or maybe you have an iPad with a pencil, you can use a program like Procreate and you can actually create something there and then send it to the laser and then cut it out. Skillshare has you covered. They have classes for lots of stuff. I actually recently have been getting more into Procreate and figuring it out because I really enjoy making the designs with my hand, but then send it to a robot to actually make it real. And they actually have a promo going on during the summer where the first 1,000 people that use the link down in the description will get a month free of Skillshare. So I encourage you guys to jump in, learn some new design tools, and start making even cooler stuff, maybe with a laser. Now, the very last part of the ecosystem is the community. There is a very active community around Glowforge, especially once it got going on Kickstarter and folks had pre-ordered the machine and they saw the development of it, which actually took a while. Their forums have been super active and I've been in and out of them over the years, especially once I got the machine. But I would say of any of the laser companies that I've worked with, Glowforge is by far the most active. And I found over the years, having a strong community around a product really helps you in the long run because you can get lots of cool ideas. People will make designs and make them available free for you to download, or they also can help you troubleshoot different things that are going on, especially once this thing is out of warranty. All right, so those are the 5 parts of the ecosystem. But there's actually one more, pretty good chance that you encountered it as we were going through this review, and that is marketing. Actually, let me know in the comments if you guys saw an ad for the Glowforge as we were talking about Glowforge. But more than any other laser company, there is a lot of marketing dollars behind Glowforge. And that's because Glowforge as a company is really set up a good bit different than the other ones that I have seen and I have done reviews of, because they're really functioning more like a tech company that's gonna give you a physical product. You can see that on the software side of things where they have a monthly subscription as well as the constant updates, but even how they like refer to the machine, they don't get as deep into the hardcore maker side of things. Actually, you rarely hear cutting in their marketing, it's always printing.
Meet Glowforge, the 3D laser printer.
Because it feels like they want to make this as accessible as possible. And actually their mission statement is a world where anyone can print anything. And in general, they kind of cast just a wider net in terms of the customers that are using their machines as well as the folks that they are marketing. I especially see this show up in a lot more crafting situations than just straight like woodworking, DIY type stuff, which is really fun to see because you get just a bigger variety of projects that are inside of the community. So another piece of their marketing that also works really well is their referral marketing. If you've seen anybody talk about Glowforge or post about Glowforge online or make these videos, you probably have heard them talk about a discount that you can get if you use their promo code. And that's pretty much open to anybody that has one of these machines. Now the person using the promo code will get a discount, and then you also will get a kickback. And that is totally the case for me too. So there are links right down below if you guys do decide to pick up one of these machines. So let's talk about, is the Glowforge worth it? My short answer is yes, with caveats. First, between the actual 3 different models, the Pro is super nice, especially if you need to do the pass-through piece. It does have an upgraded laser tube as well as the machine can run faster, but you would still pretty much be able to get the same result. But if you really need to work with long pieces of material, this guy's gonna be able to do it for you. But the Basic and the Plus are still really great machines. And actually, I'm pretty sure the Basic is gonna take the crown for me, at least right now, for the machine that I recommend the most for people that are looking at these kind of desktop style machines that have a lot of bells and whistles. Now, this probably compares most directly with Full Spectrum Muse, and actually last year, their 2D version, which is kind of their middle of the line, was my top recommendation of like lasers in general, but that one's actually been discontinued. So they have their still top of the end as well as their base unit. But when we talk about Glowforge and like the big ecosystem, so all the other stuff that comes with it that is in addition to just the laser, I definitely think there is a huge benefit in just how integrated that full system is, especially if you're getting materials straight from them, you're using some of their designs. This thing is just really easy to use. Now, if you're looking at this compared to a cheap CO2 laser, so like a 40-watt CO2 unit from Ohmtech or one of the Chinese imports, I mean, those are like $400 to $500 versus several $1,000s. And the biggest difference between those two is just you're gonna have to fiddle with the 40-watt units a lot. But especially if you have a business where you are selling products or you're customizing things, then a laser can be a great addition. And just how easy the Glowforge is to use, it could be a really, really good fit for you. Because you're really not gonna have to learn a lot of new things to use a machine that usually does take a lot of learning and a lot of tinkering to get it to do the stuff that you want it to do. Now, if you're looking at this compared to like a cheap diode laser, which I've done a lot of reviews of those, especially recently, those are really hard to compare. Those machines are a couple $100, and that could be a really good entry for you if you want to get into just engraving. But for cutting, engraving, the full ecosystem, I think Glowforge is a really good option for you. Now, if you do want to see reviews of those other machines, like the Full Spectrum Muse, the Ohmtech 40-watt unit, as well as a cheaper diode unit, put together a quick playlist for you right up there, and you can go through them. Also, let me know what you think in the comments. Would this be your pick? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? I would love to know. All right, until next time, go make or break something in your shop. See you guys.